Welcome, everyone, to Friday 15. My name is Brian Beck. I'm here with Andy Hoare, your master B2B hosts extraordinaire for the Intergalactic podcast, Friday 15. Intergalactic, Andy. Do we have people from other planets listening to us, I wonder?
Soon. We're not far off.
Anyway, folks, we got an exciting session for you today. We've got a lot to talk about and, talking all about the gig economy. But before we get into that, let's go ahead and do our breaking news. Andy, whoops, why are we at the end here? Let's go all the way back to the beginning of the slide deck. And BigCommerce rebrands and shifts its focus to AI-driven digital commerce. Travis Hess, the CEO, they made this announcement yesterday in their earnings. They released their earnings. They said digital commerce is no longer organized around a single search box or a closed ecosystem. Discovery and transactions will be orchestrated by answer engines. Answer engines. This sounds very AI, Andy. The next era of our industry will be agentic, where AI acts on behalf of customers to discover, recommend, and even transact. Interesting. So this is a repositioning of this brand. You love and follow this space very closely, Andy. You're with your combine. What's your reaction, sir?
Well, I actually like what they had to say. I will reserve judgment on whether it works or not because they have to deliver.
Yep.
That said, I think the approach is accurate. We've talked about this. I talked about it 2 weeks ago when we talked about the combine. Right. I said next year's combine is going to look a lot different because there's going to have to be a significant agentic kind of core to what these platforms are doing. I think what they've announced that I believe is accurate is they said that the behavior is going to shift away from the way it is being done now to bot-based things. They said there's not going to be a single search box, but rather, things are going to be orchestrated by answer or by agents, etc. Behavior is going to shift. It's already happening in B2C. It's going to happen in B2B. And I think what BigCommerce is doing is now commerce is positioning itself for it. Now, the devil is going to be in the details, but we've already seen this on the B2C side. Amazon's got thousands, probably tens of thousands of agents now.
Right. Yes.
Walmart has been experimenting pretty heavily. They have multiple agents as well. There's going to be an adoption curve. And I think what we're seeing here, which I find positive, is that some of the vendors are pre-positioning for it. Salesforce, final point here, has done this as well. I was at the Salesforce Connections event. I'm Dreamforce. They can't stop talking about Agentforce. And there are people who question whether that's real or not, or if it works or not. But it feels like these two companies at a minimum have gotten on board with this idea that the commerce engine is going to look radically different in the stack in a couple of years.
Well, there's no question, Andy. I think that platforms that embrace this as now commerce, it's quite a name, by the way. That's a big stake. That's a stake and a big claim in the market. Well, commerce.
Yeah. By the way, that they had to buy that, and so it was reported. Somebody found that. Do you know what they paid for it?
No, how much?
$2.4 million.
Whoa, baby. Okay.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. They're a publicly traded company, so they had to report that, and they had to buy that domain because that was the first thing I thought. I'm like, wait, was that available? Yeah. So it was available for $2.4 million.
Well, good for them. I mean, it's very interesting, but I think that platforms that embrace this, Andy, there's coming a day where the agent AI is going to do your ordering for you, particularly recurring orders, things where there's, not a lot of solutioning involved. The human isn't necessarily needed for, more complex situations or applications, and, AI will get there too. But first step, yeah, for sure. I mean, there'll be a day when the front end website experience is going to become less important because everything's agentic. Humans never even look at a website. It's going to be fascinating to see.
No, that's coming, and so that changes the commerce infrastructure. If you're a seller, and let's say your website is less important or it's shifted toward bots, then whoever is creating that for you and the commerce infrastructure necessary for that is going to have to change. And I think that's what these guys and others are starting to acknowledge. That wait a minute. As Winston Churchill famously said, when the facts change, my opinion changes. I think that's what's happening here. The facts are changing right before us, and the vendors are getting on board with the idea that they're going to be in a different business potentially in a couple of years.
That's what I love about this e-commerce business, digital, Andy, is that it's always changing. I love that we're in this field. Well, folks, this has an implication for our topic today. is the gig economy coming or here in B2B digital and e-commerce? Is the gig economy? Well, the fact of the matter is that research shows more people are pivoting out of full-time roles into contract, freelance, or self-employed positions these days. This is a study done by LinkedIn, which shows that. So the market has moved more towards this, quote unquote, gig economy, which is not, permanent roles. These are more flexible. They're interim, they're contract, they're advisory. They might be on a temporary basis. Fortune reported recently, Andy, 53% of senior executive openings are being filled temporarily. 53%. That's more than half. That's something that Fortune reported just about 2 months ago in 2025. Likewise, in the first 2 months of 2025, according to Challenger, Gray, and Christmas, which is a big executive search firm, almost 25% of new CEOs were hired on an interim basis. A year ago, that was just 8%. What the heck is going on here? You've got all these, you've got senior. How does a senior level executive, Andy, kind of manage, a business if they're not fully permanently in the business? How do people get behind their vision if they're only going to be there for 4 months? I mean, this is, to me, I don't know. How does that work, particularly at that level?
Well, I said this in reply to your post. I really think this issue about how companies employ people from top to bottom is going to be the defining issue of our age. I think we are seeing a resorting here. The chessboard is being thrown up in the air, and it's coming back down, and who knows where the pieces are going to land. This is just early evidence of that. Another piece of evidence is what we were going to talk about next, which is the Wall Street Journal published a fascinating article about a week or so ago about how CEOs are bragging about how they're shrinking their workforces. Now, in the past, when you said, hey, we're reducing our headcount, that was an instant sign that, oh, the company's in trouble.
Right.
If the CEO said we're reducing headcount by 10%, all of a sudden, all the portfolio managers and Wall Street says, wait a minute, what's alarm bells? Company's failing. Now, that's like a badge of honor.
Yeah.
Here are a couple of quotes. So Hans Vestberg, the CEO of Verizon, said, we've been very, very good on headcount. It's going down all the time. Zach Burkawa, who's from a company called Sloan & Company, he said, being honest about cost and headcount isn't just allowed, it's rewarded.
Wow. And
then the last one is Brian Moynihan, who's never met a camera he doesn't like, the CEO of Bank of America. He said, over the last 15 years or so, we went from 300,000 employees down to 212,000 people. We've just got to keep working that number down.
Wow.
So this is, and they're replacing them with AI and technology. And we know it's this like capital labor substitution that we learned in Ecom 101, but it didn't used to be the case that companies would, be avowed advocates of this thing. This is what is happening now. Some people are referring to this as the great flattening, where at all levels, you talked about the C-suite, it's happening in the middle ranks as well with middle management, where companies are declaring people redundant, especially in the age of private equity too, where they bring two companies together and go, okay, we have redundancy all over the place. That eliminates positions. Then you throw in AI, the expectation to be able to do more with less, and all of a sudden you just have fewer positions. I mean, that's just a mathematical reality, and but it hasn't ended there, right? We're looking. So we talked about the top. A lot of this like redundancy and pruning is taking place in the middle part, but I think the canary in the coal mine is this one. I think we've actually talked about this. That AI is wrecking an already fragile job market for college graduates.
Mm-hmm.
The national unemployment rate is right now is about 4%. I think it went up slightly this morning with the latest jobs numbers. But for new college graduates, it's 6.6%. And before you say, well, I'm sure it's always higher, it's not. Historically, that number has been in line. Those two numbers move in tandem, and they've been very close. This is higher, substantially higher. I know anecdotally, I have relatives who are going through this right now.
Right.
This is because companies, rightly or wrongly, think that AI can replace a lot of the entry-level jobs. I mean, Google, 50% of its code now is being written by AI. Microsoft has announced similar numbers, 30 to 50%. Well, that's a lot of entry-level jobs that aren't taking place. So what we're seeing in some is that this whole kind of labor market construct has been, I don't know, blown up, but it's being radically restructured right before our very eyes, from the top, the C-suite, through the middle, all the way to the bottom. So it begs the question, what do you do about it?
Well, that's right. I mean, you're being almost, what you're saying, Andy, is that professionals, entry level all the way up to C-suite, are being pushed into having to look at alternatives, having to look at a gig economy. Even if I'm a college grad, even just to make a living, I mean, I got a 13-year-old son. I'm thinking about, what field should he go into? Well, back in the day, development, programming, right, for coding. Well, those jobs seem to be going away.
Well, I heard a stat.
Yeah,
I heard a stat the other day that really surprised me, and I'm really surprised by stats, but this one did. In the last 15 years, the number of computer science majors has doubled.
Wow, really?
Doubled. Yeah, because what happened was in 2010 or so, Uber and Airbnb and Facebook, they all took off, right? And everybody said, wait a minute, I want to get into computer science, which, by the way, at the time sounded like a great idea. So that's a good thing. We doubled the number of CS graduates. Well, now with AI writing all the code, now you just have twice as many people who have less work to find. I mean, this is fascinating. I really was surprised by that. So what is this new labor market going to look like? Hey, who the hell knows? It's a bit like the economy these days. Who knows? But I think there's some early indicators of how this is going to kind of shake out.
So what's a super agency concept? I mean, rise of the worker with super agency. What do we mean here?
Yeah, so you got to peer through the rhetoric here, but Reid Hoffman, who's the founder of LinkedIn, and he's a venture capitalist, and he likes to pontificate about things. Actually said he wrote a book recently, which is pretty fascinating, called Super Agency, where he's anticipating what this is going to look like. And some of what they talk about is things like careers that are what they call multi-hyphenate, meaning you're going to have like multiple parts to your career. It's not like you're going to be just one thing, like I am a consultant or I am a marketing manager. They said you could see things like, they use example, founder, artist, researcher, operator, writer, curator. I think there's some truth to this. You're going to see people who are going to be doing things like running a fitness business while also being a yoga instructor, while also doing gigs on the side around, AEO, or answer engine optimization for friends, which it's all, in my opinion, it's all going to be project based.
Interesting.
It's going to be people who, and by the way, with AI, you can learn how to do things pretty quickly, which means you don't have to be an expert at anything necessarily. Now, there will still be experts, right? Like, you don't want your surgeon to have AI tell them how to do the surgery on you. So there's always going to be experts and law and accounting, but basic law, basic accounting, basic healthcare. This could be people who have just minimal credentials who are using AI, and they're doing that along with other things, because I'm not sure there's going to be people are going to have jobs that they're 100% dedicated to, or even companies that are 100% dedicated to, which we're going to get to in a moment. I think we're looking at this hyphenated thing where people are going to have multiple things they're doing at the same time, and they're using AI to create what they call super agency. The other thing that was mentioned was Gary Tan, who's the CEO of Y Combinator, said that he's seen companies that have gone from $0 to $10 million in revenue in less than a year with fewer than 10 people.
Crazy.
And I think, again, these are software companies, but, one of my favorites, I just saw one the other day. I can't remember the name of the company, but there was a guy who was promoting the release of his new AI technology, where you can go there. It's in like a search box, and you enter what your interest is, and it will create a business for you. It will create a business plan. It will tell you how to do the marketing for it. It will give you a step-by-step guide to how to do it. And you can think about a world where somebody might say, I'm really interested in fill in the blank. You could use a technology like this to create your business, and then it's going to be a game of execution.
Yep. Yep.
But
What's
what I
fascinating.
didn't mention was expertise. It could just be interest going to business as opposed to interest to expertise to business. The expertise part might be, sort of driven by AI.
So AI is really powering the gig economy. It's allowing these things to happen. It's really a new type of economy where this gig worker really is if they embrace it. Like I'm thinking about my 13-year-old Andy, and like he's using Chat GPT for things. So I actually want him using AI because I want him to be comfortable with it and explore it and think creatively about how it can help him in his career, right? So we're seeing really an emergence now of this new gig worker, and we're seeing it amongst our community, right?
We sure
With
are, yeah.
some of the stats you have here, why don't you read them for our podcast listeners?
Yeah, basically that, there are three dimensions to these new gig work, which by the way, we're familiar with the gig worker. Kind of started out with Uber drivers, and TaskRabbit people. And now it's become sort of a metaphor for now it's in the white collar space. And so
Right.
what they've discovered is that these people are gig workers, not surprisingly, tend to be more entrepreneurial. The numbers show that almost by 3 to 1, people who are gig workers are more likely to start a new company than
Right.
somebody of working age population. They're more productive. This is fascinating. These gig entrepreneurs generate much higher gross profits versus regular companies, partly because they probably don't have a lot of layers of management, right?
Right.
It's
Right.
just them and the business. And if you do well, you keep all the profits
Right.
versus having to share it with employees and shareholders, et cetera. And the last thing is, not surprisingly, because they're more entrepreneurial, there's more risk associated with it. These companies are more likely to fail.
Yeah.
But you also realize higher productivity, higher performance if you can survive. So basically, I think the net of this is the economy is going to become a lot more entrepreneurial. And I think people are going to use AI to do many things on their own, as opposed to you need to have 10 or 15 people to start a company. Maybe you only need 3 people, and 2 of them can be AI agents that are doing your marketing, your legal work, your accounting work, and it just enables you to do whatever you want. Which, by the way, if you're talking to your son, I think this is going to shift to the qualities that are really going to matter in somebody on the execution side are project management skills. You're going to have to deliver on stuff. We found this in our business, right? We give people things to do. We're too busy to babysit them. I don't care
Yeah.
how they do it, just get it done and make it high quality. I think that's what we're looking at, which then really leads to the big one, which is how are you going to get this project work?
Well, what's interesting, Andy, is we're kind of you and I actually we're kind of gig workers, right? Because you and I each have interests in multiple businesses. We're doing this podcast stuff, and we have other firms that we work with, so we're in a sense we're using AI for things. I mean, we're living this gig economy, folks, firsthand. So now it's interesting. I think and as executives, I mean, as long time, and you and I have both worked for companies for a long time. The majority of my career, of my 28 years or 26 years, has been working for companies. So, and same for you, right? You're at Forrester for a long time, and so we've been on both sides of it. But now we're in the gig economy. We asked the question of our audience and LinkedIn: in 5 years, which of these do you expect to be the prevailing employment model for B2B digital professionals? People said full-time employment at the most out of the 4 options. But what's interesting is only 40%, Andy, said it. 60% said something other than full-time employment. Multi-company gig or fractional employment, 26%. One company contractor model, meaning I'm contracting to a company, I'm dedicated to that company, 17%. And of course, our apocalyptic scenario here, AI replaces all digital executives, 17%. So
This one shocked me. I have
yeah,
to admit, I was surprised by this. I thought full-time employed would be much higher. I didn't think it would be 100%, but I
right.
would have guessed it would have been in the 60 range. But
Yep.
it turns out, as you pointed out, 60-40. They believe within 5 years, full-time unemployment model will disappear in
The
the B2B
employment.
commerce space. And
Yeah.
it's like, wow.
Yeah.
If you think about that, 5 years isn't that long. 5 years is still in this decade. And
So
so,
yes.
yeah,
So my personal opinion is you can't outsource leadership. My feeling is that the leadership, there's something intangible there that always will need to be there. And you're leveraging AI, you're working within the organization. But I think you need to be full-time present. If you're a VP or a C-level in a business, I don't know how you do interim. I don't know how you, interim's fine for a period of time, but if it's a try to buy kind of thing, or you're testing a scenario. But look, my personal opinion is that is the wrong model for a leadership position. Now, underneath the leadership, yeah, I think a lot of this is going gig, right? I mean, again, you and I use this in our own businesses. I have people at my Enceiva business all over the country doing different things, and some of them are project based. I got people working from home 20 hours a week, doing different aspects, some of the marketing aspects, some of the writing. I got a guy who lives in France that does our writing for us. It's like we drive the gig economy. You and I do through our businesses. We're living this, but the leadership needs to be dedicated, I think, in these B2B companies. I don't know if you agree with me.
I'd say, yeah, I do. But I think the rest of it though is, how do you get this work? Like, how'd you meet that guy in France? How do you know these people?
Online,
I think
Upwork.
I think this is going to be networks. It's going to be well, Upwork is great, but you don't know these people. There could be some dude from North Korea who's faking this capability to try and get your password so he can hack into your bank account, right? So I think reputation and networks are going to matter a lot here. You're going to go to people you know and you trust and say, look, I need this project to get done. Or you're just going to post something someplace.
You just said trust, and that's a key word here. And I think that's another thing that AI cannot replace. So talking about networking, Andy, we have the opportunity for everyone listening today. Listen, I sound like a used car salesman.
Yeah, I know, but it is true. I mean, this is the thing.
It is true. I don't know why everyone in our industry is not yet on our forum and part of our Nexus program. And we have a huge cohort. We have tens of thousands of people in our community. But at the end of the day, our B2B e-commerce and digital is huge in B2B, and so we ought to have hundreds of thousands of people. If you're not a part of our Nexus or part of our forum or a member of our community, you are missing the boat. We just talked about networking, the importance of this. We have our Nexus program, which is your personal B2B digital lifeline, provides expert advice exclusively for B2B software executives. Trusted format, right? So I mean, you're talking to other people that have been in your shoes. These are humans, not AI agents. So this is a paid service for practitioners. I encourage you to check it out on our website, masterb2b.com. Also, our forum is free for practitioners, executives at manufacturers and distributors. It is practitioner only conversations happening. We've got every single day, Andy, great conversations happening. People asking for advice on positions, on organizational structure, on platforms, on everything. So again, masterb2b.com, click on forum. And finally, want to remind everyone that our Friday, 20 plus now, is available via podcast on your favorite streaming service. Please review us, particularly if it's a good one. And we appreciate that. So go to Google, Apple, Spotify, our website, YouTube. You can find us all over the interweb. So encourage you to check that out. Andy, any final words before we break for this Friday 15?
This will not be the last time we talk about this.
Heck no, man. We're going to keep talking about this gig economy. And in fact, I think we should have some people on that are living it like we are and in this B2B e-com space. And maybe we'll do that in the next couple of weeks. So thanks everyone for listening. We will talk to you and see you next week on the next Friday 15.